Welcome to Crooked Hooking, everybody. It is great to see you. Today we're going to be doing a nice simulated landing into the Delaware Air Park here in Delaware. It's a really nice, simple approach. We're going to be coming from the northwest, and one of the things I want to show you with the Microsoft Flight Sim to the real approach plate is the labeling for your waypoints are going to be different, so you can't exactly rely on everything in the sim to be correct to reality, but it is a good nice little helpful basic training at-home tool that you can use. But like I said, it is a simulated version of everything, so it is not an exact actual approach. This is just for, you know, a helpful guide. One of the first things you're going to notice is the waypoint Ojawu on Microsoft Flight Sim is actually different. It's going to be Jotsi in real life, and since we're coming from the northwest, what we're going to do is basically fly over the Delaware River from the New Jersey side, work our way down to Sophie, and then we will then work to Ozigi, and then the runway. Also, what you'll notice on the Microsoft Flight Sim is there is a waypoint that is missing, which is called Ozafi, and at that point we want to be at 800 feet, which is about 2.5 miles away from the runway, and then we will then continue our approach down the 400 feet, which would be about a mile or so away from the runway. If we don't see the runway at the 400 feet, we will then do what's called a declared missed approach, go into our holding procedure, and then re-enter the approach after we do the holding pattern. So let's get into it, let's have some fun, and hopefully you guys enjoy a simulated version of this approach. Alrighty, so we are approaching the first waypoint, and in Microsoft Flight Simulator, this one here is called Ojawu. The real one is called Jotsi if we're flying at the Delaware Air Park. So what I like to do is, as we get a little bit closer to Ojawu, we'll start to get the heading bug situated. And we're going to be doing a distance to track of 176. Our heading is 176. And then we'll make adjustments as need be to get ourselves centered up on the magenta line. And about halfway through this leg for our next waypoint, that's when we're going to turn on all of our lights. We have our landing light on, and now we are ready to go to continue on with the flight. And after we get to Sophie, we're going to then throttle down, then turn our heading bug towards the runway, as well as set up our altitude, which will then be 1700. We have to be at 1700 feet for our next position of the downward step in the approach. Now, since this is a 90-degree turn, I want to get the turn set up and ready to go long before I even get there. That way I'm on the course line. So now we're going to set up for a 266 heading. And then once we get there, that's when we will then set up our altitude. And then we'll just make corrections as we go, so that way we stay up on course. Now you can see on the GPS, there's a vertical line with the triangle, rectangle is slowly coming back to the center of that triangle, and that is basically our magenta line, our course line. Once that goes into the center, that's how you know that we're on course, and then we'll just make minute corrections so that way we stay on course all the way down. This way it's a nice precise precision approach all the way down. Now, how do you gauge how you do your step down procedure for your altitudes, so that way you don't get there too fast or you're not too slow? And that all deals with your altitude that you're starting at, your speed, which is your ground speed, and then your distance from where you're supposed to be for your waypoint. And with the Cessna 172, if you're going at a ground speed of really anywhere from 100 to 97 knots, or 97 to 100 knots, your glide slope that you want to use is basically about 450 feet per minute. We're at 2,000 feet. Oziggy is our next waypoint. We want to be at 1,700 feet, and we're just about there. And if we're going too fast, just slow the airplane down just a little bit. Watch the altitude, watch your VSI. And now our next altitude that we need to be at after we hit Oziggy is 800 feet, 880 feet. About 3 miles out, we want to be at 880 feet, or 800 feet, because we're going to continue our step down. Once we reach 800 feet, then we're going to continue our step down approach. Now I'm 4 miles out. I can start bringing down the RPMs. I can bring it back down to like 1900 RPMs. We don't need to be super fast. When I hit 3 miles, at about 3 miles, we want to be at 440 feet. Now in this case, with the Microsoft Flight Sim, we're going to be at 400 feet. So it's not going to be exactly precise to that mark. And a nice 500 foot per minute descent. Alrighty, 3 miles out, we can start bringing the power down, because now we're going to start adding in flaps. And again, we want that vertical line to be in the middle of that triangle. And we'll just make small corrections as we get there. Now we're 3 miles out. Okay, so we are in the white arc for a flat range, and we're going to slowly make our adjustments to go down for the final approach to land. 2 miles out. Now usually I like to use the increments of the miles from the runway. 3 miles out, we'll start adding in the first notch of flaps, and then 2 miles we'll do the 2. And then at about 1.5 miles, we'll do the second notch. We don't need to add everything in, and then we can just dump everything else in as we get a little bit closer to the runway. Alrighty, so I have the airfield in sight, and we have all of our flaps in. So now it's just like a normal approach. Like I said, these trees here on the Microsoft Flight Sim, it's not how it is in real life. It's actually pretty open. Alright, field's made, do our flare, and then we'll continue our rollout. So that's basically how you do a nice, simple GPS approach to this airport, to the Delaware Airpark for runway 27. Really simple, really easy. And as we get close to the end of the runway, we'll just pull back ever so slightly for aerodynamic braking. And I don't really even need to hit the brakes until I reach the end of the runway. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. It was a nice, simple, really basic simulated version of a RNAV GPS approach for Delaware Airpark for runway 27. If you guys did like today's video, smash that subscribe button, drop a comment down below, and also hit that like. And until next time, we will see you.